Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Little Dixie. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story begins by showing the execution of a Mexican cartel member named Juan Miguel Prado, who was accused of murdering several civilians in a very sadistic manner. The execution is witnessed by the Governor of the United States, Richard, who has recently been accused of corruption.
Juan Miguel Prado, you have been sentenced to die by the state of Oklahoma. Do you have any last words?
This is only the beginning.
We are also introduced to our protagonist, Doc Alexander, a former Special Forces member. He now works as a facilitating agent, or someone who facilitates a ceasefire between the governor and the Mexican cartels. Doc is worried about Governor Richard's decision to execute Miguel, because if the Mexican cartel finds out that his brother was executed, there will be revenge actions that could lead to more chaos. We are also shown another character named Billy, a government staff member who liaises with Doc and Governor Richard. Doc is surprised to see the news that Richard deliberately publicized Miguel's execution so that he would be considered a hero and his corruption case would be forgotten. But without realizing it, this action would make the Prado family, aka the Mexican cartel, demand revenge.
Reported against you this week. Reports that you were directly compensated for the Keystone.
Sure enough, news of the execution reaches Miguel's older sister, who is the wife of a cartel boss, Lalo. As a big boss, Lalo tries to be wise and not take revenge, but unlike his half-brother Cuco, who has a violent, brutal, and sadistic character, he does not accept the humiliation of their brother's execution.
¿Estás bien, hermano? Están escupiendo en nuestra cara. Let me do this, brother.
Back to Doc, who has a daughter named Nell. The two of them rarely meet due to his divorce from his wife, Carla.
I love you, kiddo.
Me too.
After meeting with his beloved daughter, Doc goes to one of the Mexican cartel's headquarters. As a facilitator or special agent like the CIA, Doc had many acquaintances from various lines, whether it was the government, the criminal environment, or the streets. As such, Doc's name is well known in the criminal underworld. In a conversation with one of the people in charge at the headquarters, Doc learns about an act of revenge that Cuco will carry out without the permission and approval of Lalo, the big boss of the Mexican cartel. Doc immediately went to Billy to warn Governor Richard that there would be an act of revenge that would harm the governor's family or those closest to him. They both went to see Governor Richard that night. However, Richard remains stubborn and insists on continuing with the plan to eliminate the cartel and publicize the action so that people know that he is a hero and a brave governor. In fact, it was all nothing more than an image to cover up his alleged corruption case. The issue is quite a headache for Doc, who is caught in the middle between the two camps, the Mexican cartel and Governor Richard. He is the one who will definitely be cornered if a war between the two camps breaks out. Initially, Governor Richard made a peace deal with the Mexican cartel after they agreed to deposit money monthly as a license to do business in the United States. But when his rottenness and corruption were exposed, Governor Richard suddenly turned around and wanted to fight the Mexican cartels. He didn't realize that many of his subordinates would become victims of his planned image. Sure enough, what Doc fears happens. When Doc arrives at Billy's house, he finds Billy and her daughter dead on the bed with bullet holes in their head. Of course, this was all done by Cuco, who had already arrived in the United States.
Listen, Doc, whatever arrangement you had with the governor is gone now. The governor has decided to end this relationship.
Doesn't work that way, motherfucker.
Doc goes to the cartel's business headquarters to receive his monthly allowance and tries to calm things down for a while. He also introduces himself to Cuco, the half-brother of the Mexican cartel's big boss.
Cuco, he just came in from Mexico.
Just then, under Governor Richard's orders, special forces raided the place.
Police!
Doc, caught between the two camps, is forced to intervene and slaughter all the special forces for his own safety. After slaughtering all the special forces, Doc immediately leaves the place. At the same time, Cuco sees many bodies of special forces lying around. He realizes that Doc is not ordinary, which makes him realize that Doc can be used. On the other hand, Governor Richard has just arrived to hold a press conference for his successful raid while seizing a lot of evidence, such as money and drugs. The aide then informs him that Billy, one of his employees, was found murdered this morning, and also a call from Doc warning Governor Richard not to continue with his press conference. However, the governor went ahead with the press conference, even live on television, not caring that many of his men would fall victim to his image-building act.
Good evening, Oklahoma.
Look, I can't get into it. I got an early morning, I gotta jump.
Soon, the aide became the next victim when Kuko was already in the car and tied him to the seat. Then Kuko put the burnt cloth into the petrol tank.
Help! Help me!
The next morning, Doc was called by someone who turned out to be Kuko. Apparently, Kuko had kidnapped Nell, his daughter. This obviously made Doc emotional, but Doc tried to remain calm, not overreacting, even casually listening to what Kuko's purpose was.
What do you want?
Apparently, Kuko wanted Governor Richard's head brought to him.
Head.
Just the head.
I want the head of Richard Jeffs.
Without much ado, Doc immediately agreed to bring Governor Richard's head to Kuko. However, before that, Doc asked Kuko to prove that his daughter was alive by asking what his favorite call was. It turned out that Doc's favorite call to Nell, his beloved daughter, was Little Dixie.
¿Estás bien, Little Dixie?
Doc feels even more guilty when he informs his ex-wife about their kidnapped daughter. The ex-wife asks Doc to bring back their Little Dixie immediately.
I hate you. What are you waiting for?
Not wanting to waste any time, Doc went straight to an arms supplier to buy some necessary equipment, then went to the house of one of his colleagues, a fellow special agent, to find information about Kuko, the man who had kidnapped his daughter. The man claimed not to know Kuko, but rumor had it that Kuko was the half-brother of a Mexican cartel boss who was notorious for causing trouble, including assassinations, bombings, massacres, and other vicious acts. Kuko is a very dangerous man. He won't hesitate to kill Nell, his daughter, if Doc doesn't bring Governor Richard's head tonight.
I really am sorry.
Meanwhile, Kuko is seen in a bar. Kuko immediately takes a prostitute to a motel room. The scene moves to Governor Richard's residence. In addition to being a corrupt and image expert, he is also having an affair with one of the officials, committing immorality while his children and wife are being secured to their hometown.
Everything is gonna be fine.
But without Richard knowing, Doc has just arrived there and immediately eliminates one by one the guards, including killing his mistress while Richard is in the bathroom. How surprised Governor Richard was when Doc was already inside. Realizing that Doc is going to kill him, Richard tries to persuade Doc by telling him about their closeness and good moments in the past. But Doc was not at all persuaded. It was because the result of Governor Richard's actions had made his friend and colleague named Billy die badly. So, without hesitation, Doc immediately kills and beheads Governor Richard. After bringing the governor's head, Doc called Kuko to ask where they should meet.
There's a little town near the border called Del Rio.
There's a motel there. The Royal Inn.
Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kuko was seen on the phone with Doc when his comfort woman accidentally walked into the bathroom and saw a small bound child who was none other than Nell, Doc's daughter. Kuko, who saw that, immediately killed the comfort woman. He was then forced to carry her body outside, where there happened to be two residents who looked suspiciously at him. However, Kuko didn't seem to care and continued to throw the woman's body into the rubbish bin. Despite his psychopathic tendencies, Kuko was still kind enough to offer Nell some food.
Your papa's coming.
A curious Nell then engaged Kuko in conversation, asking when Kuko first killed someone.
When was the first time you killed someone?
Kuko revealed that he had killed someone since the age of 10. At that time, there was an older brother who insulted his mother as an immoral woman. Not accepting that his mother was insulted and made fun of, Kuko stabbed the older brother without any guilt. From then on, he became a mobster after his stepfather invited him to join a Mexican cartel. Shortly after, Kuko saw the two occupants of the motel and reported them to the motel owner. In a hurry, Kuko got Nell into his car and drove away.
Get in the fucking trunk.
When the two occupants approached him, Kuko not only killed the couple but also killed the motel owner, who was on the phone with the police. This is enough to prove that Kuko is a ruthless person and will not hesitate to kill anyone who interferes with his goals. The next morning, when Doc had just arrived at the motel, He actually saw a crime scene with 4 bodies that had allegedly been murdered. Realizing that this was Cuco's doing, Doc tried to get information from the local residents, who eventually found out that Cuco had gone to Mexico. Cuco decides to return to his home, the headquarters of the Mexican cartel. Sure enough, Cuco and Nell are seen at the home of Lalo, the Mexican cartel boss. Lalo was shocked that Cuco had kidnapped someone's child, which would only add trouble to his business and cartel group. But after all, Cuco is Lalo's brother. So, since it was already too late, Lalo was forced to lock Nell up in this place and never give her back. Arriving at Lalo's residence, Doc immediately handed over Governor Richard's head as Cuco requested. Lalo himself was at a loss as to how to explain it, as he had absolutely no idea about this. Doc, who felt that he had carried out Cuco's orders, only wanted his daughter to be returned immediately. However, Lalo apologized for not being able to do that. With the fact that Doc and his daughter are already involved with this cartel problem, it is feared that their presence will disrupt his business in the future.
Sit the fuck down. Let's go for a little walk.
Cuco then takes Doc and his daughter to the park, where they will both be executed for being witnesses. However, what Cuco doesn't know is that Doc is not an ordinary person who will just give up. And Doc easily defeats Cuco with just one attack. After securing his daughter in the toilet, Doc began to slaughter the guards one by one until he reached the stairs leading upstairs. However, he was cornered by Lalo, who pointed a gun at him first. When Doc had no chance to escape, he was suddenly saved by his own daughter, aka Little Dixie. On the way back to the United States, Doc and his daughter are seen stopping by a lake to dispose of Governor Richard's head. Doc also has a plan to escape the law and his brutal actions by scapegoating Lalo, Cuco, and his cartel group. That way, he can stay safe and live his life in peace with Little Dixie.